Is it Friday? I don't even know. Oh my goodness, it's Friday. I think I haven't done a Friday in a couple of weeks, right? It's Friday. Hi guys. Betty's in the house. Woohoo! I'm gonna wave at you. And Bonnie. Hey girl. All right, I put the request to you so you should be able to see it.
Let's connect.
Hi. I'm trying to hold it so that I can. I'm in like the worst place ever, I swear. There. Can you see part of my face?
I can.
Okay, good. What did you use to hold your phone?
Okay, it's kind of ghetto. I found, I think I'm trying to get my medals, and a motorcycle mount.
Perfect. I'm holding mine because I'm not home, so I'm trying to get it so that it's not going to move and make us car sick. How's it going?
Good.
Good, good. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, I can. How about you?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Sweet. I don't think
Got a
we
fire.
rare
You
you
got a
what?
fire going in the fireplace.
Oh, I love it. Hey, how the heck are you joining this? You're supposed to be doing stuff. I see the boyfriend checking things out over here. So, oh my gosh. Um, is my volume good?
Yeah, yeah, you sound good.
Love it, love it. So you found it easy. I told you it's super easy to do the live.
Well,
There
you said stories, and I was like, well, what's the story? I was like, I think.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I just automatically assume I forget.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you're
know.
here, so that's good. I appreciate that. All right, you guys. So I'm going to start. My name is Tiffany. I am the founder of Welding Women Syndicate. And tonight I am so super stoked. We're actually doing the Feature Friday on Friday, which is cool because I don't think I've done it for a couple of weeks, actually. I keep skipping days because we've just been busy. But we have Betty with us. And you're out of North Carolina, but what area?
Western North Carolina, the mountains.
Western North Carolina. I'm just going to like throw the one part out there immediately. Emmy! Like, that is the coolest thing that I know. I love it. That look when we were talking about this, I was like, Emmy, I know what that is. That is so neat. Like, okay, so how do you go from what was it? You did industrial tech. That was one of your minors in college, correct?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
Emmy to these larger than life sculptures. I got to hear this story. Like you have the coolest score. I think you're probably one of the most well-rounded artists I've ever talked to, which is super neat. So tell us a little bit how your introduction just into welding beginning from your college years.
Well, I started out working in getting a degree in graphic design, and because my parents said, well, art's great. My grandmother was an artist, but she said, it's going to be hard to make a living at it, and you might as well, get a proper degree. And so I went to graphic design and couldn't find work. And then I actually moved out of my tiny little town, and I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and ended up working for NBC News. And just kind of like, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a startup station and they needed a warm body. So I got into that, and then it led me down another road of learning 3D animation and learning alias wavefront and working in television. And that that actually kind of spawned my kind of fascination with starting to sculpt. And I thought, that'd be so cool if I could just really translate that, to actually creating these pieces. So actually, the big tall sphere that I made, I did in 3D. It's
Oh
just to,
wow.
how it would work and if it's going to look, dorky or whatever. But um, so fast forward several years in the making of working in television and advertising. I just got tired of the rat race, got tired of just being another number and wanted to go back to my creative roots and actually try something new. And I had grew up on a farm, on a small town, Western North Carolina, and there's always something to do on the farm. So my dad got sick and he needed some help. And so I said, Dad, teach me how to weld. And so from there, it just kind of snowballed to kind of where I'm at now. And I love it. I love welding. I love just being creative. And I love repurposing metal to uh, become something else, that's more larger than life. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my story as how I got into welding. But
Well,
that,
you say larger than life. You are not kidding. Like, how about let's take it a little bit further back? Like, talk about what was it that you and your father built in the basement
oh,
way back in the day? So like your creativity didn't just start, like, oh, I went to college and this and that. You were like growing up building like the craziest cool things, and you have a very cool mentor who was your father. So let's talk a little bit about like the history of your like evolution into all of this.
yeah, dad was a very unique person. My parents were both school teachers, and so they taught me, well, we grew up in a time where you just made to do with what you had, and they didn't make a lot of money. But my dad was always he was like super genius, so smart, and he was a welding instructor. But I never got to take welding from him. I never got to take. I'm self-taught. I didn't learn until my 40s. Um, but as a kid, I was always in the shop with him. I was always working on in something. So I was probably about 9, 10 years old, and he he would build life-size airplanes in the basement,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought everybody's dad had a airplane. But he'd give me little jobs to do, like taking the hammer and hammering out these little wings, bars, and things, and using bandsaws and all that. So we get the project almost done, and we're living in the old house, and we were moving to the new house that we were building at the same time, actually. And go to get the main body out, and he doesn't have the wings attached. It's a small house, and he gets it stuck in the doorway. So he got my sister, my mom. We were out there trying to jiggle this thing around and shove it out the door, and he's like, it's just not going to fit. It's just not going to fit. So he takes the door jamb down. He miscalculated it by about like an inch.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always doing crazy stuff like that, and building satellite descramblers and whatever parts were laying around. Um, which ironically, the last piece finished was the Bigfoot, and I had a problem getting him out of the basement.
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's gonna fit. And it's totally gonna fit. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, that's not gonna fit. So I had to do the same thing. I had to take off 2 of the panels and like kind of, shimmy him under there. But yeah. So yeah, my dad was definitely my mentor when it comes to, and my mom. My mom she was not creative, but she was a pianist, and she was just she let my dad do anything. He'd be driving around in the driveway, or in the front yard with the tractors, and we built the house, and he would tie ropes around my sister and I to lower the whatchamacallit into the what do you call it, anyway, the well.
Right. There it is.
So he's like, well, he just tying ropes around us to keep it from dropping down in the well. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God. So you guys really learned to be very brave. Do you think that having a father that basically was just like fearless and pretty much doing anything and introducing you guys to almost everything. Do you think that helped build like like some people they have like self-doubt? Do you think that you were just like you didn't have that type of fear when you went moving forward building these huge larger than life sculptures? Like, cause I feel like sometimes when I talk to a lot of people, they're like, I don't know if I could do it. I mean, you're a welder. Of course you could do it. If you're creative, I think everybody doubts themselves. But did you ever have any of that doubt just because you went through so much crazy stuff as a kid?
Oh no, there was, well, yeah, we didn't. We just, we would just we'd get in the car and we'd drive to Wisconsin for Oshkosh and take 4 days lost in the worst places ever, and just take it in stride, and you camp out under an airplane wing.
I
Um,
love
so yeah, dad and mom and dad made a great couple because they kind of they let each other just be them, and they always promoted me and said,
it.
hey, you and whatever makes you happy. And in the beginning, my dad wasn't really thrilled about me being an artist because that's why he was kind of like, he was like, maybe you should get a real job.
Uh-huh.
And I was okay. So when I finally did learn and I finally did get into it, then he really started to kind of like, that's really cool. And then he started wanting to try hijacking my projects. So I'm like,
Oh no.
wait, go do. So, but yeah, and my mom always was huge. I lost both my parents, and it's a daily thing that I think about, and I always think about the lessons I didn't get to learn, but the lessons I did learn, about life and just being myself, and that's okay, is something that I really appreciate getting that from them.
Well, and we appreciate it too because I love seeing your work. I've been a fan forever. I know when I saw you come out on the was it Benchmark Abrasives, the
Mm-hmm.
the Welder Showcase,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, look at her work. That is so cool. And then like just to show the scale, like one of the pictures, and I don't think I've posted it yet, or I went too quickly in the montage, but you're almost half the size of Bigfoot. That's insane. Like,
Big.
oh my goodness, I can't even. I say that it's just because I haven't done it. I've worked on big vehicles. I've worked on, like tractors. I've worked on huge industrial machine, but I don't think about that type of scale because I didn't create. I'm just repairing it or I'm just welding on it. It's no big deal. But something like that, like what goes into no, I don't want to even go into that yet. What was the first form of welding that you learned and why? Because I
Well,
think this is a cool story.
yeah. So the first, you're talking about the stick. You're talking about stick.
No, gas.
Oh
Around
yeah.
your dad. Around your dad.
Oh yeah. Or trying to get the gas to work and it blowing up, that kind of thing. Is that the
Hmm.
story?
I think so.
We talked a lot, didn't we?
I know. Well, it's
Like
funny because we were
hours.
on the phone for like 2.5 hours. Watch out, you guys. We're going to be on a long one. But
So,
no, well, because when you were initially when you went out to start helping your dad weld, because he didn't
oh
you
right.
say he had? Isn't
Yeah,
that the one? Okay, okay.
he got sick, and he got sick. He had to have the doctor wanted him to have a a pacemaker,
Right.
and so you can't really use a MIG welder, with the pacemaker. So I said, well, Dad, you know, teach me how to work with this and the oxyacetylene and the cutting torches and things like that. And yeah, I'm trying to figure which story am I telling you?
I
The
think just the introduction of just starting to use it, when you started welding with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, the first piece that was
Was that the horse?
the 6 foot tall weather vane horse.
Oh,
And
right.
that was actually partially gas welded. And he was like, let's try stick. You should try stick. This is gonna be really good for you. So we used the acetylene torch to cut the letters like north, south, east, and west. And then, the letters are like, they're big because this is a huge piece. And I I didn't tell you this part, but it was kind of funny. Dad would always say to me, he says, well, just make sure you do fire lookout, whenever you're welding, because, I'm in the woods and there's all kinds of leaves and things. Um,
Uh-oh.
I was wearing a polar fleece, it was cold, and I'm the letters, I'm just getting really into it. It's so cool. Oh man, I'm really digging this. And I'm cutting and I'm leaning over and I'm looking around, I'm not paying attention, and the polar fleece goes up next to the rod and it catches my polar fleece on fire. I didn't know it. I had the hood on and
Oh no.
it's like shoot. And so I didn't get too burn up. But yeah, that was a good lesson in safety wear, and don't wear polar fleece because it's very flammable.
No.
Uh, yeah, and then what else? So then he did teach me, MIG welding, and said, he saw the types of things I wanted to do, and I told him, I was like, I just, we have barn gates and things that need to be repaired, and I know that, you're going to need some help, and if you get this pacemaker, I'm going to need to do it, so you need to teach me. So that's how it started, and then I would weld little things together and trying to figure out, the wire speed or how to make a puddle or just, messing around. And it was just so much fun. I always said it was kind of like being Merlin the magician.
Right.
You got like this torch and I mean, just in a blink of a second, it just melts and it's a beautiful thing. And then you can see it just grab and it's there for the rest of your life and probably your kids' lives. So it's like
Love
a
it.
thing.
Now, what is your favorite process of welding?
Um, I think it's just the actual aha moment of like when you get the perfect, the perfect shape, the perfect whatever. I think I told you that I used to use every clamp that I had. I would use like 20 clamps on a piece, and it would get all the perfect size, shapes, and whatever. And then one of the clamps would fall, and the whole thing would I had to start over. My dog's go away, Dixie. But yeah, just
Oh,
that. My dog, she's fun. She's a pit mix. She's crazy. Go away, Dixie. Go. So, favorite part of welding. I think it's just that creation, that like you're doing something that is going to outlast you, that is going to move someone, that's going to make them, kind of go, oh wow, that's a shovel. Wow, that's a this, and it just gives them joy. And that part, I like seeing the reactions on people's faces when they see my pieces.
I love that. Um, what about you have so many crazy pieces. I'm trying to think like all the different ones that I have stalked your page, I've stalked your website. Like I am not kidding you guys. When I say she is like one of the most well-rounded artists, she's gone from pen to paper to digital art to metal art to photography. Like you have to check her page out. It's amazing. And just go onto her website. It's even
Thank
more so. Like
Go to my Etsy page. Bad
oh, and
Baby.
go to the Etsy page. Do you have it listed on the link tree now, don't you?
Dixie, crazy dog, go down. No, I don't. Well,
We'll have to link her. We're gonna get her linked.
yes,
We
please. I
promise.
don't.
I'll send you a link. I got you. So there was one you're telling me about. It was in a gallery, and I think it was was it a McLaren What's the story behind that one? Which
Clarence,
was that? Was that the
uh,
album?
that was the Foo Dogs.
Oh, the
So
Foo Dogs.
dogs were, they're- it took 2 years to make the pair.
Wow.
And that I'm still kind of learning and still trying to. One of the toughest parts of the way I weld is um, just trying to get the dissimilar metals, together and get, something thick to something thin and lots of rust and it's kind of funny because I use a lot of muffin tins and I use a lot of cooking utensils. And quite often they get hot enough to where you can actually smell what was cooked in them because it's like the crap. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, the Foo Dogs were in Miami, or they're still in Miami, and they are going to be, well, actually the gallery there, and right beside they were kind of the entrance to um, the gallery space, and this McLaren Speedtail is backing in between the Foo Dogs, and I was just like, this is surreal.
That
Like,
is the real moment right there.
oh, you know,
Oh, that's my work.
yeah.
That's so cool. Now, did they commission that piece? Is there a particular story behind it?
No, actually, I guess as a friend of mine would say, these are my passion pieces and things that I want to do. I do commission works, but that particular piece was just, I've always had a fascination with Foo Dogs and feng shui and that whole idea of, you know, uh, Lucky Charms and, you know, cryptids, like Bigfoot and
Hmm.
uh, things like that have always, and animal totems. Animal totems definitely resonate in my um line of work. I really find animal symbolism and things like that to be something I tend to gravitate towards.
Love that one. Now, can you walk us through the process when you start designing it? Because I'm gonna have you do it with Bigfoot too, because that one is insane. But I like you've done so many different scales. Like this one, I really that really is a surreal moment. I imagine you didn't like go into creating this and you're like, oh my gosh, it's sitting next to McLaren. I'm a car girl, so I'm like, wow, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like who, you don't go into thinking or knowing that. It's just you're
Yeah.
creating it. And how did walk us through the process of it?
Um, well, well, a lot of the pieces I do, like the horse, the big horse, size horse.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the size I need it? How heavy is it going to be? Where is it going to go? How am I going to pick it up? I mean, because there's a lot of factors, that you kind of have to, and that's one thing I've always thought that uh, there's so many artists out there that do really, really heavy stuff, and I like doing things that are a little more whimsical and lightweight, and kind of have that airy feel to them, and all the lines have to be sexy. It's like a beautiful car. You
Yeah,
have every angle, and you look at this angle, you spend a lot of time doing this. I'm like, oh, that's pretty. No, that's not good.
yeah,
So that's a big part of it, and then figuring out what am I going to use, like what kind of a material am I going to stick in this thing, and where am I going to find it? Because a lot of stuff's given to me. A lot of stuff was in my family barns. I often would come upstairs, kind of like the guy on Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, when he would come out and grab something out of the drawer and go downstairs and make his car. That's
yeah.
what I spoons and forks and things. So she's, oh, just take it, it's fine. So
So cute.
each item has like it has its own energy. I think I think that's something that you know, like for you, you know, when you have car pieces that you were what car you were working on?
A 49 Chevy.
49 Chevy. And you
Hmm.
were about doing that it was all it had like the rust on it and things and that's just, it has like that's own energy, you know. And
Well, it's funny because right now I think there's about 8 layers of paint on it. But like we're looking, and I'm talking to like body guys, and I don't know necessarily too much, but they're like, "Oh, that's the original paint here," and then somebody did it over here, and then there's a good story about the last layer, and then they clear coated it. So each layer, it's funny, has its own individual story, and then you can see, like there's a story about the chromed was a glove compartment. And so I guess here's the that's it's funny you're talking about stories. So I'm sitting there just welding in the braces, and Jeff is like, "Do you know why they chrome the glove compartments?" And I was like, "Because it looks cool." I never really put too much thought process into it. And he goes, "Well, imagine if you were sitting there, and I'm normally in a dress. Like if we go to car shows where I'm wearing a dress." And I was like, "Oh, if I was sitting there in a dress," and I was like, "Oh, pervert," I didn't even think about that. And he said it's kind of a joke, but then kind of, serious. And I was like, "Oh, that's funny." So, and I highly even doubt that the owner knows that story because he just bought it. So he's telling me all like the old school stories about what people used to do to their vehicles. And I was like, that's funny. So when we're talking about energy, each part that we dive
yeah,
into on the vehicle has its own little story, which is hilarious. I love it. It gives it its own, it does give it like a magnificent energy because there's a little bit of everybody's energy is involved in it. Not just us, building it or chopping it and modifying it, but
that's
everybody that had their hands on it.
I like those the patinas where there's, you know, like these different multiple layers and that, you know, from reds to greens and that is just beautiful to me. That's like my dream vehicles to have a just a sexy rounded any kind of a, you know, rat rod type of thing, which is one day I'll end up doing, but one day.
Let's build one. That'd be cool. I know. I want to see it finished too, you guys. I swear. We haven't even worked on it. We've been running amok. We
I'll
have.
make you a cool hood ornament, like a, I don't know, like we'll do a real rad, you know, rat head or something.
Oh my God. That would be so cool. In spoons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. But it only has to be spoons that you have acquired over the years at restaurants that you
Yeah,
stole from or something. I don't know.
I've done that.
Funny. That's funny. We were just at Pea Soup Anderson's yesterday. Was it yesterday? And we were talking about, like, did you ever go to like certain restaurants and just happen to find a salt shaker in your bag when you went home? Like we used to always steal something from a restaurant. So it'd be like a spoon or a knife or a salt shaker. Maybe I did.
That's great. Yeah, no, I a lot of forks and spoons and knives and things, and I'm like, hey, hmm. I used to write them down, like where I got them from, just so it would kind of be cool, like all the restaurants. And then I was like, well, you know, half the time I don't even write down what's like in Bigfoot. Bigfoot is shovel, and the eyes are doorknobs, and
Oh, that's cool.
there's there's saw blades from the sawmill, and I think there's part of a hunting stand, an illegal hunt stand that was put on my property, and
I love that you repurpose things. How did you start to just repurpose? Like why did you start using repurpose items?
because my dad never threw away anything,
Oh,
and so I was like, Dad, are you gonna use this? Can I? He's like, well, that was from a Model A, but I guess I won't be needing it. Okay. Well, let
thank
me
you.
give it new life.
I love that. It's funny. We acquire so much stuff over the years, and to be able to put it into something that's going to be there for, good grief, who knows how much longer, Bigfoot is going to be around. Do you, when you're creating Bigfoot, and what we're talking about, if you guys go to the last post, I think it's the very last slide on the picture, you'll see the scale of her welding on the Bigfoot sculpture. But how tall is it?
I guess he's almost 8 feet.
Holy moly. Did you, when you're creating him, did you know that it was going to be that scale?
Yes, I actually drew it on the floor. I took the shop floor, it's concrete, so I just took a chalk and kind of, put it down and started out with proportions of what I imagine Bigfoot would be. Nobody really knows.
Right.
But I knew I wanted it to have a superhero feel because kids are often, freaked out over monsters at night. And this piece was going to go to a festival and where kids were going to be there. So, um, and kids love superheroes, Hulk and the Beast and all that. So I was like, okay, well, let me, give him that kind of physique. And it started out just like an armature, just, I used, I used coat racks and whatever I had laying around that was like kind of like a U-track piece. So it would be make the hips, make this, and then I cut it in half, got it to stand up, and then cut it in half, and then pivot him so he's kind of at a side. And it's all janky at that time. The whole thing is like wobbling around. You're like, man, this looks terrible.
Right.
But you have to, and that's the thing with this type of work is you just got to trust your vision and trust, I can see what it's going to look like in my mind
Mm-hmm.
and see it to the end. I mean, that's it's weird. Like, I don't know what pieces I'm going to use, but I look for shapes and I look for color and I look for certain symbols as well. Like, it'd be cool to do a wood saw blade because he's in the forest. Bigfoot
Right.
doesn't like down his forest, you know. So little tongue in cheek kind of stories,
Yeah.
that goes, and I think it's cool when people can pick it out and go, oh, oh, there's a Smith and Wesson, demilitarized Smith and Wesson revolver. How cool is that? So
That is cool. Now, do you ever write the storyline of like certain things you want people to know when you display your work?
no, I used to do that, and honestly, I think it's better for the person viewing it to make up their own story. You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
they ask me, I'll tell them what but I don't want to lead them to seeing something because I think that's the beauty of art is that you don't have to make a blah.
Right.
It's maybe it doesn't look like a Bigfoot to you. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's Chewbacca. It's like, that's cool. I don't know what Bigfoot looks like, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think that, and I learned that from a mentor a long time ago. He said, just let them see what they want to see out of it. And sometimes you're
Like,
surprised at they see and go, oh, I didn't think of that. That's cool.
yeah. The power of perspective. Somebody just put that right now as the tiny welder. Yeah.
Uh, yes.
I like that. Now, where the heck did Bad Betty designs come from? I mean, obviously your work is badass, but how did you come to that name? It's adorable.
Well, so I'm a biker. I'm a firearms gal. I yeah, I've tried everything. I've done a little bit of everything, and all my friends that would say, "Oh, badass Betty, badass Betty," and it's like, so I was like, well, it's not a bad name. It's catchy.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
I just took the word ass out. I was like, that's kind of
You should have kept it. I love it.
bad Betty. Yeah, it'd be cheaper to onboard her, but.
It's a matter of semantics here. That's cheaper. And now kids can say it. We're not offending anybody here.
Oh, see, now I'm learning. Now I'm actually looking at the comments. See, y'all, this is my first live, so I apologize, but I know Hitman. Hey, That's cool. This is awesome. I was nervous at first, but after talking to you earlier,
It goes quick though, you know what I mean? Because we are usually on here for about an hour, and we like when we were talking on the phone, I was like, I already know it's gonna go so fast because there's so many things that I wanted to talk about, and I was like, we ended up talking from what was it, like 2.5 hours or something like that. So, people are like, well, it's live, you can't see them, and sometimes you can see the comments, and sometimes you can't, but it just depends on the interaction on the convo. Sometimes it's going so fast, I just don't even look anymore. I can't keep up with it. Like I'm trying to wave and say hi to everybody. I promise I am, you guys. But I'm trying to also pay attention to what she's saying too. It does fly, you guys. I promise. It's not like I'm trying to ignore, but you guys are welcome to throw in comment. There is a question mark at the very bottom, so if you want to ask her something, I can pull it up and ask for you guys.
yeah,
Just so that I don't have to scroll back on the comments, because they go by really quick, and I eliminate them so I can see your face, because if not, all I see is comments. So
oh,
when you see my eyes going back and forth, that's how I'm trying to like turn the comments off.
I don't know. I'm honestly, I'm like, man, yeah, it's something else, but it's cool. It's
Well,
really cool.
it's I think it's really important just to see I highlight women who have gone to school, women who've owned businesses, women who have had parents who didn't support them welding, or parents who did support just about everything. So
Mhm.
it's nice just to see like a very well-rounded and well-supported um artist and welder and sculptor. You know what I mean? It's just important to show all different perspectives, just like Tiny Welder said, it's perspective. So I want to make sure we have a well-rounded perspective and not just man hating over here, or, like, woe is me as a woman, because that's certainly not always the case. And I want to make sure that, like, even if a man is watching, like there's a bunch of guys watching, if you have a daughter, support them. You may not necessarily understand what they're doing or identify with what they're doing, but support them, guide them. And then, like, if it comes to a point where it's not, like your father wasn't initially super stoked about you going into it because it wasn't a real job. Now look at you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, just support it. You'll figure it out. You're a grown adult. You can't always keep them in the nest forever. It's very important.
yeah, and yeah, he actually, like I say, later on, and I actually caught him. I went down to go work on one of my pieces, and I'm working on my piece, the big orc. He's like, oh, I figured I would. Oh my
That
God.
is so cool. Do you still have that piece?
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's at the barn. It's about 7.5 feet tall, and it's
I swear, you and your
I
scale, man.
know I like doing big stuff.
I
Uh,
love that. Now, how did you finally get Bigfoot out of the shop? What did you end up doing?
so I had to take so the house Dad just, and it's made out of cypress, and so there's these like panels, like one panel here, one panel there, like back and forth. He designed the whole thing. We built it as when we were kids, and he had to take. Well, I had to pull off two of the the wooden slats just to get it, and like because his neck was there, I had to take a plasma cutter and cut the neck off.
Oh
And
no.
well, I just weld it back on. I mean, it's like tack welding. Just tack it on there and go. All right, well, let's see if it sticks. Or which, by the way, that's another thing Dad would always say. We talked about when he was teaching me weld. Say he to teach me to weld, and I would take so much time at it, and he would take it up and throw it on the ground. Bang! I was like, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, it's welded." I was like, "Okay."
You did it right.
Little less like that, but yeah, I had to tear off part of the house to get Bigfoot out, and then I had to take the New Holland tractor and take the front end loader, and I actually made his neck here has these like these places where you can lift him up like that, and I forgot that the bucket will pivot. And so every time I would pivot it, and he's 8 feet tall, so the hydraulics only go so high.
Right.
And I'm like, it took me, I don't know, 3 hours just to get him lifted and like just to get him over there. And I was videoing it. I actually want one of these days I want to put it on YouTube because it's kind of funny. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's like, man, I'm just gonna totally. This thing is just gonna fall apart. But it didn't, so that was cool. I was
Did
happy.
you? Even if it did, it wouldn't have broke because your dad already showed you that trick. You already know it's welded.
It's That's right.
I love that. Hold on, real quick. Peters on Daryl. I think Peterson Daryl. He just said, "I just qualified another girl today at the Boilermaker Hall." I just had to say congratulations on that one. I like to hear that story. Good deal, dude. Now maybe it's time for a bigger tractor, so that we
Maybe
have bigger sculptures.
it's time for smaller sculptures.
Ah.
Mothman next.
What is it?
Mothman. Some more crypt.
Oh,
Maybe Lizard Man or Mothman.
that will be very cool. How cool is it that you got it done before Halloween? Did you like what
Well,
was
I was shooting for earlier, and I thought I was going to get done in 3 months, but it ended up taking 4 months to get done. And I yeah, I just it stuff happens, you know.
yes, yes.
Uh, Especially
Now
with
what did you do with it afterwards? I like this story because I it's funny because I did something similar with a gate, but I was so proud of the work that we kind of did a similar like through the town. You know what I mean? So what did you do with Bigfoot afterwards?
oh, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take Bigfoot uptown. I need to take him around town. I need to put him on there to get some photos. So I drove him around the lake and I got some really good pictures like he's out in the wild.
That's so cool.
Like, I got to go downtown Marion. I got to take him around, you know? So I did. And I almost caused a bunch of accidents,
Oh
people
no.
like, what was that? But yeah,
What did people have to say about it?
they're like, oh my gosh, you know, is that real? But the funniest thing is the dogs and the horses and all the animals as I was driving were just freaking out. Like
Losing their minds, yeah.
that's like a huge, you know, thing. I don't know what that is. So yeah, it was pretty fun.
What do you is there something in it? No, I know obviously the look of it and the scale is probably like making them lose their minds, but did you weld something into it that maybe that they're like catching up on something like maybe it was like a wild horse's cage or something, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's something like that. We're talking about energy, so maybe you got like something in there like where the animals are attracted to it.
Yeah, I don't know. The dogs didn't like it. That's they.
Imagine they'd be freaking out.
I don't know.
Does anybody ever question who did it?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things. One of the first pieces I did here was a horse, and it was thought by all the locals that it was my dad's work, and they just assumed Dad did it because Dad was a welder, and nobody, and over the years, you know, it became kind of a landmark actually because the UPS guy and people around town like, oh, but yeah, they thought my dad did it, and it was kind of cool to go, yeah, no, I did it. Like, what do you mean you did it? I was like, yeah, I welded it. They're like, what do you mean you welded it? Yeah, I welded it.
Oh, you're like, that's mine. I made it. I did all of it. My dad has nothing to do with it.
I got asked a lot too. Is it glued together? I was like,
Why? Well, I know you live in a smaller town, but that even in a larger town, you hear that type of like nonsense. Like, why is it that people think that women cannot create these type of things? You know what I mean? Like, why is it so? Is it abnormal in your area too for women to do like more unorthodox type work like that?
um, I think that I just think in general, there's not a lot of. I mean, my, people come from different times and different, like my my family and everybody around here knows me as we were the family that rode motorcycles and we're flying airplanes and
Right.
boats and doing stuff. And Dad was driving in the front driveway and in a tractor and mowing down flowers and whatever. So we were always, Mom always laughed at they were the first people in town to be wearing leather. We wore leather and rode the Golding around. So, um,
You're right.
but my mom was really ultimately she was badass. I mean, she in her own way, she was very, very instrumental and helping me be, a strong woman. And that's both my parents were. So,
I love that. No, I think that, it is true. When you have like a really strong parental unit, yeah. My mom was very creative in all aspects, and she was also a biker babe. And I don't necessarily think they actually even like what I do still. I don't know. I still get questioned like, "Oh, you're still doing that thing?" Yeah,
that
12 years later. Yeah, I'm still doing it. So I don't know if they necessarily accept it. I mean, they see it and all that, but I don't know. But it was, my mom never told me no. I was never really told. Everybody did everything. There was art, there was, motorcycles, there was creativity. So I never knew that there was a boundary. So I just did it. The only
right.
boundary has really been with society, not necessarily my family. And maybe if they just didn't care because I was a girl. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, she's gonna do whatever she wants. She's a girl, whatever. Nobody cares. She's not a guy. And I just didn't care. I just kind of ran with it.
Well, there was no question with me doing stuff. It was always, I mean, I was a tomboy. I've always been a tomboy. I was the son my dad never had. So, yeah, it was to me, I thought everybody was like me.
Yeah,
And I just wish I had, my only regret, I think, would be I really wish I could have learned to weld at a younger age. I think I would be so much further along, rather than starting later on in life. And I couldn't squeeze it into my class schedule. And, it just didn't fit. And I wanted to learn, but I just didn't have the time. And I was going into a biology major at the time. I was like, well, I got to take genetics. I got to take, uh, all these other classes that don't welding just doesn't work. And the other thing is it's to me, seeing a lot of these trade classes that are going away, it's kind of scary, like
it is.
I taught the trade classes and they're not really, we're losing a lot of it. And it's, we need that still. And
I agree. Look at Tactical Bigfoot Research just joined. How perfectly timed.
oh, hey,
Did you see her Bigfoot sculpture? I'm just saying. Let me wave at these people. Check it out. That's so cool. Now you said you taught. What have you been able to teach?
I'm sorry,
Did you say you taught?
taught welding? No.
Oh, I thought you just said you taught one of the trades classes.
No, my
Oh,
dad taught.
whoa, whoa.
Dad taught.
And he taught just about everything. I love that.
Yeah, industrial technology, taught welding, solar energy, uh, auto mechanics, auto body, woodworking.
Wow.
Uh, he made a solar panel for our house back in the 80s. Like it was just,
He was advanced before, oh my goodness, before his time, man.
yeah, he really was. He was always uh, just really insanely smart, just insanely smart. Like
Well,
everybody knew.
we could
Right.
see where you got it from. I mean, I know you say you regret it, but do you think that all of the classes and the you know the talents that you've built up to this point, don't you think it's led you into this point where you're making these larger than life and just like amazing sculptures?
Yeah, and I think, and you are right about that. I think that having that exposure to doing 3D animation and modeling and working in television and seeing three dimensionally and um, thinking outside the box. That was the biggest thing for me in 3D was there is no box.
Right.
Like the only box is what your television looks like. And that's what you're creating for. But when you're creating 3D, it's exponential. Like you can go wherever you want. You can make it whatever size you want. You can do whatever you want. And it's kind of the same with, well, it's definitely the same with sculpting, but when it comes to welding, like, well, you can make it as big as you want as long as you have an equipment to, pick it up and move it. And as long as you have enough shielding gas and, flat discs and consumable.
Have you ever started a project where initially it was one size and it just like evolved into a grander scale than you originally intended?
Uh, no, because I pretty much know what size. Well, the orb that I did, I actually wanted to make it twice as big, and then I realized that I was building it in the basement, and I had to do it in two parts. I
You're reliving your childhood again, having to break the house to get
I need
the
a
structure
taller
up.
garage. I actually do. I need a taller garage. So I built the bottom part, and then I took it outside, and I bought another part, or I built another part. Built. Each ring is a half-inch diameter, and so then I had to get inside of it, and I'm standing inside this orb, and I'm welding upside down, and trying to do all the rings, and each ring, is fit, and uh,
Oh, this is the kinetic sculpture you're telling me about, right? Where can we see this? I was trying to see if I could see a picture of it. Is this on your website?
yeah, it's actually one of my earlier posts, like from when I first started.
Okay. I thought I went through the whole page, but I would after we talked, I was looking for this. I'm like, that just sounds so cool. You know, the circle thing resonates with me. So I was like, I
It's,
want to see it.
yeah, it's the one that the kids think looks like a fish. That's weird. Like, oh yeah, that's a fish. I'm like, it's a fish, but
Okay, it's a fish then.
oh, that looks like a puffer fish. Okay, I see that. And it's just like there's a walk on it. There's solar lights. There's my dartboard ring from college. It's just stuff. Whatever.
I love that you use all these items. Now, what was the I know I'm gonna bring this one up. What was we were talking about the secret to welding dissimilar metals?
So, so yeah, the secret is, well, it starts out with figuring out which piece is thicker. If you're doing thicker and thinner, and if you know one's more conductive than the other, then you want to uh, lay your heat to the thicker material, and just kind of you just kind of want to fan it over real quick, and you're kind of like building up a bridge between the two, and
Yes.
it's and then you lay it down, you just fan it, and you'll know by the way the color changes. You could see it, where when the puddle kind of does run from one to the other,
Hmm.
and if it's kind of laying on top, or if it's welded.
Right.
And I always said, he goes, only the welder knows if it's welded or not, unless you have an X-ray machine, and they'll know too.
Well,
But
it's funny I we're welding this dang car is like I think it's 19 gauge. I think that's what this 19 or 20 gauge metal, and it's old, you know, it's not like new metal where it's got some, you know, there's nothing. It's brittle, it's dirty. And I was like, remember the thick metal, feather it over, because I'm used to welding like, you know, 3/4, 1 inch. And it's been such a long time since I've had the pleasure of welding on thin gauge metal. And that's where I started. So, you know, you always remember, but we had just had that conversation and I was like, feather it over. Don't burn the hell out of it.
The other trick is to because you know you have to use a MIG on this stuff because it's got so much
Dirty. Yeah.
dirt, grime, and Cheeto dust on half of the things that I have that you
Did
know
you say Cheeto dust?
remnants. But as you're clicking, right, you're just going to add a little bit of filler, a little bit of filler, a little bit of filler, and just kind of and I'm talking super thin gauge stuff. You're just getting it to that point where you're adding enough metal to then you can lay it to it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's going to be a solid connection. And that was one of the hardest things that Dad taught me to do. And he taught me how to fill a hole, which, you know, if you've ever done that, where you have to kind of run it around,
Run it around. Yep.
run around without burning through. And you got to look at the color of the heat, you know, and just kind of keep. It's a touch, you know, and I'm sure you know that. But yeah, the dissimilar metal stuff.
Especially with old. Yeah, you learn it quickly when you're trying not to burn through, you know, that precious piece of pop metal that you're never gonna find again.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a pain in the butt. It's gonna drive me crazy. You learn quickly though, but yeah, filling holes, that's the name of the game right now.
yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, Now you're not formally trained when it comes to welding, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the uh, first time I ever really picked it up was when my dad got sick, and I came to the farm and just said, show me what you know," and I would have been in my 40s. So,
I love it. Now, I know everybody always stresses education, and I'm an educator and all that stuff, but what is something that you would tell somebody if they were just looking to just get more in touch with their creative side and they're probably maybe not feeling as confident about picking up a welder? What type of advice would you give them when they're just, you know, like they don't necessarily know? There's a slew of resources out there, but what would you say when something that was running through your head when you first started to weld, and as opposed to look taking a $20,000 course, you know?
I'll tell you, um, there's a couple things that I recommend that, well, I would say go to Harbor Freight and get that cheap welder, um, because it's here's the thing. I know a lot of people who go out and spend a bunch of money on a really awesome welder and the hood and the gas and the this, and then they get into trying it and like, yeah, I don't like this. And then they
Right.
and it's like or just buy a cheap one, play around. It's kind of like learning to play a guitar, right? Learn on a crappy guitar
Mm-hmm.
and get a Les Paul or something, you're going to be wailing, because you really, it's just going to be like, wow, this is so much better. Like you're going to nail something that's not to say that Harbor Freight's crappy product. Sorry, that
We love you, Harbor Freight.
love Harbor Freight. Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
No, I say that because they actually have like a really cool contest for the high schools. And I tell my students the very same thing. You know what I mean? Get a very inexpensive welder, something where you can just practice on. You're going to break it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Don't buy a $1,500, $8,000 welder that you don't know how to use, because you're going to get frustrated and you're probably not going to touch again. You're going to end up selling it and talking crap about welding. Just get a cheap welder Get a good hood, protect your eyes. You only have one set. But you don't have to spend $500. Like my hood is like stupid expensive. But it took me 12 years to get to that point. You know what I mean? Like I do that because this is what I do for a living. In the beginning, I had some cheap pipe liner that was a fixed shade and it barely fit my head because it was some old man from a refinery. I had a wrap leather on my head. I made do with what I had because who knew if I was going to like this? Who knew if I was going to be able to do it? So you don't know. You just kind of make do with what you have and invest a little bit so that maybe later on you're going to invest more. Don't waste your time on it. Protect yourself always, but I tell my students the same thing. Get a cheap welder. Practice makes progress. Don't think you're going to go out and get a big old, welding rig. That's stupid. I don't get it.
Yeah. No, I think that's um, that or find someone who has one and see if you can go, you know,
Use
like,
theirs.
or if nothing else, just let them try it because, it's kind of like teaching women to shoot. It's the same. There's a fear factor when you don't know. Like if you're they're afraid of getting electrocuted, afraid of getting caught on fire, of, you know, what does this button do? And that's fair. I mean, it's fair to have that fear, and you should have a reason for sure. But yeah, I think that um, if you can find someone that can just give you a few minutes and see if you like it, and then go out and buy an inexpensive one or buy one that's, that you don't have to worry about as much. That would be my
I
definite.
agree.
Awesome.
I agree. It's funny because my first time welding, I was at someone's shop and none of that was mine, like I just basically was thrown into work, and I ended up loving it and I ended up, going to formal school later on. But who knew, like who knew that that's what I thought my life was going to be something else with a different degree. And, I mean, I had absolutely no idea. And I started welding, 30s. So it was later in life. I had already had houses, kids, babies, marriages, divorce. You know what I mean? So it's not like my life didn't, churn out like you're going to be a welder when you grow up. Absolutely not. I thought it was going to be like a stockbroker or something. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, welding,
Who
welding
is this? Sorry, guys. Do what?
is our superpower.
I love it. It is. Do you feel like superhuman when you're creating these like huge, massive sculptures? You have to.
I no, I don't really. Sometimes, most of the time when I'm sculpting, I there is always a point when I step back and I go, "Wow, this is terrible."
No, are you serious?
I'm like, I don't know if I can finish this. This is terrible. And I'm like, is this going to come together? And I just keep saying, all right, let me just push that doubt away for just a minute. And let me just keep working on it, and eventually, uh, that's something my dad always told me, just tack something on. Don't use every clamp in the book. Just tack it on there. If you don't like it, just rip it off. And it took me a
Yeah.
while to, but yeah, at some point there's always, man, I don't know. But then at the very end, and that's the saddest part about sculpting, is at the very end is when you you're just about to finish, and then you're like, oh man, I'm just about ready to finish, and it starts really clicking really really fast. It's like, and then you're done, and it's like, and when the last piece is, you can see at least, oh, I got 5 more pieces to go, I got 4 more pieces to go. And don't overdo it. That's the other thing, is just trying to not overwork a piece. So
Have you gone back and like taken things off of a sculpture before? Like, I don't know about that piece, or reworked a piece.
occasionally I have reworked a couple pieces that I'm like, this doesn't, and I actually have some getting ready to rework, I think, just because I'm like, it didn't really come out exactly, but then again, it was more of an abstract.
Mhm.
So like it's lacking something. And I just, you know, uh, but the animal totems and things like that, yeah, I'm pretty, once I get those done, they're pretty much done. Like it's, after I sign it, nothing else will come off of it.
I really, really need to like, I have, and my sculpture is automotive, you know, and like the pieces that I do, I don't necessarily show them. We sell them amongst each other, you know, and I've always wanted to do something larger scale, and I just haven't allowed myself the, not the creativity, because I have that part, just the time to actually set aside and do it. But I'm telling you, every time, I love the fact, just because you use the you repurpose stuff, I love that idea. The whole energy thing, you know, that's a thing. So I love the idea of like telling somebody, be able to see a, you know, a piece from their childhood, or having, be able to see something when I'm sleeping and then create it in metal, and like, there it is. Like, I have to allow that. It has to be cathartic at some point, you know, like it has to. You have to have some way to release that creative outlet. So I can like imagine, I see things, I just don't allow myself the time to do it because I have too much going on. I need to
Well,
give that
well,
outlet.
you can just, you know, start a piece and then kind of put it on hold. I've got a few pieces that I've put on hold because you know, the timing or maybe I couldn't quite visualize how it was going to end up, but I
Hmm.
wanted to put it on it. And so that's okay. And sometimes your final vision is going to change anyway. So, and oftentimes when I get stuck like that, once I get back to it, it's like, oh man, this is so much better. I was getting too caught up in, you know, that whatever that was, and I'm like, something is not right about this, and I don't know what it is. It's like square peg, round hole. You know, don't
Right.
try if it's not making you. Don't just do it and then not be great. You know, just try to do something that you really want to do and make every line sexy, like you say. You know, make it all these. It's got to look great from all the angles.
I like that. I like it. It's funny because I see that way with automotive, like customizing that way. It has to be like, especially like right now we're doing the chop, and it's weird because you come from one side, like everything has to be symmetrical and the geometry has to be perfect. But during a chop, like one of the guys that was helping us, he was like, "Does it look good to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "All right then, your job is done." And I was like, "What?" He like, the fact that he allowed me to think in that creative way, like, just don't worry about that part. We measured initially and
Yeah,
everything's straight. And then when we did the measurements afterwards, they were perfect. But he was like, as long as the swoop of the body is perfect and it's real curvy, your job is done. So it's funny that you say that. Make sure the lines are sexy. It's
yeah,
important. I
yeah.
like sex lines. I love it. Now, how do you handle that when you're doing a commission for a client? If you can't like make a vision come to fruition, like how do you handle that type of like creative block?
I usually, well, knock on wood, I haven't had one yet, but creative blocks. Um, Usually, you know, I will give the client a progress. Ooh, I'm sorry, a progress photo and say, "Am I on the right direction?" You know, or am I am I messing it up or whatever? And uh, that's helpful because some people can't visualize. They can't visualize what I'm thinking, but um, yeah, I mean, it's so far it's been okay. So
Oh,
like,
I'm so happy for you. I have so many wayward pieces that like they're sitting here because I had a moment. But I think it's because I don't allow myself that time. You know, it's always do this, do that, got to do this. I don't give myself that time to be creative. Like I have a piece right now that should have went away to the customer and it's sitting here because it's somewhat finished. I was actually sitting out there while they were working on the chop and I had like a moment where I saw like a design and I worked it in beads. I'm working on beads and hemp rope right now after I welded up a little sculpture. And I couldn't stop. I was like, just ignore me right now. I have to work on it. But then it's sitting there because I haven't finished it yet because I don't have the time and I can't see it. Like I want to change a shape on something. And I was like, I can't do it. So I have to give myself more time to work on them.
Well, yeah, well, pieces for myself, I can put aside, but if it's for a client, it's got to get done. And usually they make it done for somebody's birthday or, some event or something. Um, and you just kind of, when I get, what I do when I get stuck is take a walk, when you get hung up on something is just try to clear your mind and just take a nice walk or, you know, go chop some wood or, go feed the chickens or, do something that's different. And then when you get back, it usually something like, oh, like that.
There it is. No, that's true. I mean, it definitely is true. Yeah. This one it's not a like a timed piece like that, so it's not awful, but I hate when I don't set aside enough personal time to finish certain things, like that I have a skull sculpture I'm working on. I
Mm.
I tacked part
Look
of
at you.
it. It's weird because part of it is horseshoe and it looks gothic. It's so pretty. And then the back is like some 22 gauge stainless. And I was like burning the hell out of it. So I ended up MIG wiring it. And I was doing, oh, what are you working on right here? Hey, what is it for?
That's the
Is this
one.
one a piece? Oh, that's the piece. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so cool. And now is that all sheet metal?
Yeah. Well,
Oh, that's
the teeth are cow bone,
love
and then actually the
it.
back is bone.
Oh, very cool.
Piece of plexiglass, and there's horseshoe pieces.
Was that a piece you just made for yourself?
Yes.
I love that.
This is based off of a dream. That's kind of the back.
Oh, that's so cool. I love
Yeah,
it.
and the
It's a lot of the time I will keep my pieces. I have them in my bedroom. I have them in my bathroom. I have them
yeah.
outside. Like to get rid of a lot of my stuff. I don't know. It's just something personal sometimes. Until somebody sees, I'll take a
I
picture
know.
and they're like, "I
They're
want."
baby.
Mm, I can't make that one for you. That was for somebody, but I can make one similar. They're never the same. I
Never.
could never mass produce it. I mean, I could mass produce them, but they would never look the same. Just would
Yeah.
never. Have you ever had someone want to duplicate something that you've done for another customer or client?
Um, yes. Um, but it's impossible to make it the same. I mean, especially if you
Right.
use recycle, it's gonna be different. Um, so yeah, it's not like having a casting of something. It's gonna be,
Right.
unique. And usually, yeah, but it is easier the second time you do it. That's the one thing about it. If you ever do like a horse, the second horse is going to be easier, and the third horse is going to be even easier. That's why a lot of artists um, do a series, because it becomes, you learn the anatomy, you can, draw it blindfolded. It just becomes easier. And
Have a particular shape that you like to make?
is there a shape that I like to make? I like to work with circles. I think we talked about that. You do
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
They're cool shapes. Um, horseshoes. It's funny. My dad often talked about horseshoes being like perfect shape to make stuff from. He was like, horseshoes are like the perfect because you can get so many angles and you can turn it and it's got the round, but then the just and he's right. I was like, man, but they're expensive. I don't know if you
Oh
thought of
no, I don't. I usually go to like ranches, and I end up like with barrels of them for really really inexpensive. Yeah, and then I clean them. Like I love the patina on them. They're so I like to
that.
me horseshoes when I see like like you'll see like the normal stuff like there'll be like a something to pull your shoe off or a little whatever. When I work with them, I make them look like not horseshoes. Like I like the sculpture I'm making right now, it looks gothic. And that's how I was telling my buddy, I'm like, those are horseshoes. And they're like, no way. Like, yeah, it's the most substantial metal and it's so easy to work with. And I have like the most beautiful shapes that you can just contour and make the way you want. I love horseshoes.
Right.
I
True.
just saw something the other day where they were talking about, oh, it's so country. Oh my God, I've made
Oh,
like
I think you're breaking
bonsai
up.
numbers that did not look country, you know. I've made some weird stuff with horseshoes and I absolutely love it. It's super and they're super easy to get.
Mm.
Expensive, that's clean ones. One day I'll actually get clean ones.
I was shocked. I bought a box at my local farrier place and was like, ooh, man, I actually prefer the old ones and we have horses and so we have a few, but yeah, they we don't shoe them much anymore, so deal with what you got.
Oh man, I can get one of those water barrel full for like $50. Yeah, and it's a mixed medium too. So I can get the stain or the steel and the aluminum, and then I can get big and ponies. So it's because there's horse ranches all over the place. I live in Horse Town, so
Big,
they're all over the place.
Bigfoot made out of horseshoes. That's what I'm saying. Or Mothman made out of horseshoes.
That would be cool. I know I'm still trying. We were still talking about getting the plane tickets to go out there. I was just looking it up. So it's 350 per person to fly out there for that week that we were talking about. So, I'm like, could I know I can ship like 70 pounds of them to you at a time if you need them. Because they're super easy to get out here. And even, I think they're even easier out here where I'm at. I'm in Salinas right now, and so I think I'm in NorCal. I'm not in SoCal right now, but there's farmlands all over here, and they're saying that it's even more easy to attain horseshoes. We've just been busy with the Chevy. I haven't like been able to create too much out here, artsy stuff. But if you need them, I mean, I don't think they're going to be clean, but if you're interested or if you're serious about them, let me know.
See my pieces.
You
My
what?
pieces are not. Have you seen my pieces? None of the stuff I work with is clean. I have to take the pressure
Perfect. And I've
washer
seen
and
them like that's
yeah, you're breaking
don't
up, I
do it.
think.
Am I breaking up? Oh no. Better not. Instagram, don't do us dirty, man. There. Is it back?
Yeah, yeah, you're back.
No,
You're
I'm
back.
not moving, I promise.
Yeah, it's breaking up pretty bad.
Oh no. What time are we at right now, Betty?
Well, we're 20 after, so we can probably I gotta hit the hay.
Yes,
It's
I know.
10,
It's so
it's 10.
well, we will keep you posted on our possible horseshoe something. I've seen huge sculptures with them, so I can see Mothman.
Oh,
That would be so cool. But we are gonna wrap it up because it is late. She's 3 hours ahead of us, and I totally forget about that. But stay tuned. There may be more. There may be a future trip coming up here for my birthday. But I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you talking to us about that. I just love your perspective on the art and just walking us through like your creative process. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
For having me. It was a lot of fun, and it was nowhere near as scary as I thought it would be. So my first live, I'm
Good.
made
Hopefully
it
that's
through.
an
Yay!
one more. We'll have to do more than just so that now we're more better acquainted
Yeah,
at doing this.
yes, I would love that.
I love it.
Thanks.
All right, Eddie. Well, I appreciate you, and I'll
Nice
talk
to
to you soon. All
Thanks, you
right.
too. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.